In a world where power and wealth can turn blood ties into bitter rivalries, two brothers stood at the crossroads of fate, one driven by ambition, the other by love. Ahmed, the elder, was the kind of man who never took no for an answer. Charming, cunning, and ruthless, he believed money could buy anything, even loyalty, even love. Omar, on the other hand, was different. Humble, kind, and devoted, he valued family over fortune, love over luxury. But little did he know, his own brother was about to steal everything from him, his inheritance, his wealth, and even his wife. It started with whispers, rumors planted like seeds in the shadows. A concerned friend here, a suspicious letter there, all designed to poison Layla's heart against her husband. "He's not the man you think he is," Ahmed would say, voice dripping with concern, masking the wicked satisfaction in his eyes. And just like that, doubt crept in. Layla, the woman Omar adored, began questioning the very foundation of their love. Was he truly the man she thought he was? Or was Ahmed, the powerful, successful, and dangerously persuasive older brother, offering her the life she truly deserved? And as Omar slept soundly, believing his love was unbreakable, his own brother was rewriting his fate. Documents were signed, fortunes were shifted, and Layla found herself staring at a future she never imagined. A future where Omar was just a memory, and Ahmed was the man standing beside her. But karma? Oh, karma has a way of settling debts, and this story is far from over. They say blood is thicker than water, but in the world of power and greed, even blood can be bought, sold, and betrayed. Ahmed and Omar, two brothers born under the same roof, raised by the same father, yet destined for two very different fates. Ahmed, the eldest, had always been the golden child in his own eyes. Handsome, sharp-tongued, and with an ego as vast as the desert, he believed the world was his for the taking. He was the type of man who could walk into a room and make people question their own worth. A man who saw kindness as weakness and loyalty as nothing more than a stepping stone to greater power. To him, life was a chessboard, and he played every piece to his advantage, regardless of the cost. Omar, on the other hand, was his exact opposite. Where Ahmed was ruthless, Omar was gentle. Where Ahmed built his empire on deception, Omar believed in honesty, in hard work, in the kind of wealth that couldn't be counted in gold, but in love, respect, and honor. While Ahmed spent his nights in lavish parties, surrounded by luxury and empty laughter, Omar spent his time building a future with Layla, the woman he loved more than life itself. And that's where the real problem began. Because Layla wasn't just Omar's wife. She was a prize, a symbol of devotion, of happiness, of everything Ahmed could never have. And that made her the perfect target. It started as a game, a cruel, calculated test of his own power. Could he take away the one thing Omar held dearest? Could he prove once again that in the battle between wealth and love, wealth would always win? Ahmed didn't just want to steal Layla. He wanted Omar to watch as it happened, to feel the slow, excruciating burn of betrayal. And so, the plan was set in motion. At first it was subtle, a few words dropped in passing. "I saw Omar with someone the other night. I'm sure it was nothing, but you deserve to know." A well-timed message here, an anonymous letter there. Ahmed knew that doubt wasn't something that hit all at once. It was something that crept in like a shadow, lingering in the corners of the mind, growing stronger with each passing day. And oh, how Layla fought it. She loved Omar. She trusted him. But Ahmed was relentless. His charm, his wealth, his carefully planted seeds of suspicion, they started to take root. And then, the final blow. Fabricated evidence. A staged meeting, a falsified betrayal, proof that Omar had been unfaithful, even though he never had. Layla was devastated, and Ahmed, he was right there to comfort her, to pick up the pieces of the heart he had shattered, to offer her the love she thought she had lost. Omar never saw it coming. One day he was a man with a wife who adored him, a future he had built with his own hands. The next, he was nothing. His wealth, his inheritance, gone, swallowed up by legal loopholes and forged signatures. His wife, in the arms of his own brother. And just like that, the game was over. Ahmed had won, or so he thought. Because if there's one thing life has taught time and time again, it's that no victory comes without a price. And sometimes karma doesn't just knock on the door, it kicks it down. Years passed and Ahmed lived like a king. The world saw him as the ultimate success story, the millionaire with the perfect wife, the powerful empire, the life others could only dream of. But behind the golden facade, cracks had begun to form. Because love stolen is never love secured. Layla was with him, yes, but was she truly his? Did she laugh the same way she once did with Omar? Did her eyes sparkle when she looked at Ahmed? Or did they hold the quiet sorrow of a woman who had made the wrong choice? Ahmed had won the battle, but with each passing year, it became painfully clear. He was losing the war. His empire, once unstoppable, started to crumble. Bad investments, shady deals, the kind of greed that had once built his fortune now threatened to destroy it. The very people who had once praised him were now the ones whispering behind his back, waiting for the inevitable fall. And then there was Layla. She had everything: wealth, luxury, a life others envied. But late at night, when the world was quiet, she couldn't escape the truth. She had betrayed the one man who had truly loved her. And worse, she had done it for a man who saw her as nothing more than another conquest, another trophy on his shelf. She tried to ignore it. She tried to convince herself that she had made the right choice. But when she looked at Ahmed, she no longer saw the charming, confident man who had once swept her off her feet. She saw a stranger, a man whose touch felt cold, whose words felt empty, whose love felt like a cage. And as for Omar, oh, the world had expected him to disappear, to be crushed beneath the weight of his own misfortune. But life has a funny way of favoring the ones who suffer in silence. While Ahmed had been busy expanding his empire, Omar had been rebuilding, not with lies, not with stolen wealth, but with determination, with patience, with the kind of strength that only comes from losing everything. And now the tables were turning. Ahmed was losing control. His business partners were abandoning him. His fortune was slipping through his fingers like sand. And for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never known before: fear. Because for men like him, the worst thing isn't losing money, it's losing power, losing the illusion of control. And when the day finally came, the day Ahmed found himself standing on the edge of financial ruin, the day he realized he had no one left to turn to, no one left to manipulate, there was only one person left: Omar, the brother he had betrayed, the man he had crushed, the man whose life he had stolen. And yet when he looked into Omar's eyes, he didn't see anger. He didn't see revenge. He saw something far, far worse: pity. Because Omar had moved on. He had built something greater than wealth, a life filled with respect, with love, with true happiness, something Ahmed, despite all his riches, had never truly known. And in that moment, Ahmed finally understood. He had spent his life chasing power, chasing wealth, chasing something he thought would make him invincible. But in the end, he had lost everything. And the most painful part? He had done it to himself. Because karma doesn't forget. It never does. They say the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And oh, Ahmed had climbed high. So high he thought he was untouchable. He had the fortune, the power, the woman. He had stolen everything Omar had, and for years he believed he had won. But life has a wicked sense of humor. Because just when you think you've secured your kingdom, that's when the ground starts to crack beneath your feet. At first it was just whispers, rumors in the business world, a few bad deals here and there. Ahmed brushed them off. A king doesn't worry about a few falling stones. But then the cracks widened. Investors pulled out. Banks hesitated. The numbers in his accounts that once seemed endless started shrinking, bleeding like an open wound. And then came the betrayal, the kind Ahmed never saw coming. The same men who once toasted to his success, who laughed at his jokes, who swore loyalty at his extravagant parties. Where were they now? Gone. Vanished like shadows at sunrise. Because in the world of the rich and ruthless, Loyalty lasts only as long as your bank account is full. And Ahmed? Ahmed was running on empty. Layla saw it too. At first, she tried to ignore it. She told herself Ahmed would fix it. After all, wasn't he the mastermind? The one who always got what he wanted? But for the first time, she saw something in him she had never seen before. Desperation. Ahmed was slipping, and he knew it. The charm that once made people do his bidding, useless now. The power that made him untouchable, fading. The respect he commanded, turned to mockery behind his back. And that's when the paranoia kicked in. The man who once controlled everything was now scrambling to hold on to anything. He accused his business partners of betrayal, fired loyal employees who had been with him for years, and worst of all, he turned on Layla. "You don't believe in me anymore, do you?" He spat one night, his eyes wild, his voice laced with venom. Layla flinched. Was this the man she had left Omar for? This fragile, unraveling version of Ahmed? She had thought she was choosing power. She had thought she was choosing security. But now she realized she had chosen a man who had built his empire on sand, and the tide was coming in fast. And then came the final blow. A scandal, one that shattered whatever illusion of control Ahmed had left. Maybe it was a lawsuit. Maybe it was an exposed fraud. Maybe it was a revenge play by a former ally who had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Whatever it was brutal. Overnight, Ahmed's name, once spoken with admiration, became a punchline. His business, in ruins. His properties, seized. His reputation, destroyed. And as he stood there, watching everything he had built crumble to dust, he realized the cruelest irony of all. The brother he had left with nothing now had everything. And he had nothing. Because karma never loses an address. Years had passed, but fate? Oh, fate never forgets a debt. And Ahmed, once the king of his own empire, once the man who thought he could rewrite destiny with a pen stroke and a stolen kiss, was now nothing more than a ghost of his former self. No more luxury cars purring in his driveway. No more business partners fighting for his attention. No more million-dollar deals sealed over golden platters of caviar and fine whiskey. The world had moved on without him, and for the first time in his life, Ahmed was forced to face a truth he had spent years running from. Money could buy a lot of things. Power, women, admiration, but it could never buy loyalty. And it sure as hell couldn't buy a second chance. He had lost everything. His so-called friends had abandoned him. The same people who once called him boss, who once flattered him with fake smiles and empty praises, had disappeared the moment his fortune did. And Layla? Oh, Layla. The woman he had stolen. The woman he had lured into his world of glittering deceit. Even she had left. Because love built on betrayal is like a house built on quicksand. It may stand tall for a while, but eventually it sinks. And when Layla looked at Ahmed in those final days, she didn't see the man who had promised her the world. She saw a desperate, hollow shell of a man drowning in his own mistakes. And so one day she packed her bags. No grand speeches, no dramatic goodbyes. Just a look, one final, tired glance that said, "I should have never chosen you." And then she was gone. But fate wasn't done with Ahmed yet. Because as he sat in the ruins of his former life, stripped of wealth, stripped of power, stripped of the illusions that once kept him warm at night, there was only one place left to turn. Omar. The brother he had betrayed, the man he had cast aside without a second thought, the man whose life he had burned to the ground in the pursuit of his own selfish desires. And yet, Omar had survived. No, he had thrived. Where Ahmed had fallen, Omar had risen. Not with stolen wealth, not with deceit, but with patience, with hard work, with a kind of resilience Ahmed had never understood. Because Ahmed had never had to build anything from the ground up. He had only ever taken. And now, standing before the brother he had once destroyed, Ahmed did something he never imagined he would have to do. He asked for help. Imagine that. The man who once had everything, now standing in front of the man he had left with nothing, begging for a second chance. Omar could have laughed. He could have turned him away. He could have repaid betrayal with cruelty and walked away, leaving Ahmed to rot in the mess he had created. But he didn't, because Omar was never like Ahmed. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to see his brother suffer. He had built a life filled with real wealth, the kind that couldn't be measured in dollars but in respect, in family, in a clear conscience. And so with a calmness that shook Ahmed to his core, Omar simply said, "I forgive you." No anger, no satisfaction, just a quiet, simple truth. And that was the moment Ahmed realized the real difference between them. Ahmed had spent his whole life chasing power, believing it would make him invincible. But Omar had something far stronger, peace. And that was something Ahmed would never be able to steal. They say time heals all wounds, but some scars never fade. And for Ahmed, the scars weren't just on the outside. They were etched deep into his soul, a constant reminder of everything he had lost, everything he had destroyed with his own two hands. Once he had ruled his world like a king. Now, he was just another forgotten name, another fallen giant who had learned the hardest lesson of all. Power is temporary, wealth is fleeting, and betrayal always comes full circle. But life has a way of giving you exactly what you deserve, whether you like it or not. While Omar had moved on, while he had built a future rooted in love, integrity, and respect, Ahmed was left wandering through the ruins of his past. No empire to command, no luxury to wrap himself in, just endless, deafening silence. And oh, how the silence mocked him. The same mansion that once echoed with laughter, the clinking of champagne glasses, the hum of expensive cars pulling into the driveway. Now it felt like a prison, a tomb built out of his own arrogance. The world no longer cared about Ahmed. The same people who once fawned over him now barely remembered his name. The same women who once threw themselves at him now scrolled past his pictures as if he had never existed. He had been replaced, outshined by the next ruthless millionaire, the next man who thought he was untouchable. And Layla? She had tried to hold on for as long as she could. She had tried to ignore the sinking feeling that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. But eventually, even she couldn't deny it anymore. She had fallen for a fantasy, a man draped in power, whispering empty promises, making her believe that wealth was the key to happiness. But when the money ran dry, when the empire crumbled, when the mask finally slipped, she saw the truth. Ahmed had never really loved her. And maybe, just maybe, she had never really loved him either. Because love built on stolen foundations will always collapse. So she left. Not in anger, not in hatred, but in quiet, exhausted regret. And Ahmed, he was finally alone. No allies, no lovers, no fortune. Just a man standing in the wreckage of his own making, wondering when, exactly, he had sealed his fate. Was it the day he took Omar's inheritance? The day he whispered lies into Layla's ear? Or was it the very first moment he believed that money could rewrite the rules of life itself? Whatever the answer, one truth remained. The man who had once stolen everything was now left with nothing. And the world? Oh, the world didn't even blink. Because karma doesn't just punish, it erases. And just when Ahmed thought he had hit rock bottom, life handed him a shovel. He had already lost his fortune. His name, once spoken with admiration and fear, was now nothing more than a forgotten echo in the halls of the rich and powerful. The calls had stopped coming. The invitations had dried up. He was no longer the man everyone wanted to be. He was the cautionary tale whispered behind closed doors. But fate? Oh, fate wasn't done with him yet. Because karma doesn't believe in mercy. The final blow came not from an enemy, not from a vengeful business partner or a betrayed lover. No, the final strike was far crueler. It came from life itself. A scandal, a lawsuit, maybe even an arrest. Whatever it was the nail in the coffin of Ahmed's reputation. The media devoured him, his name splattered across headlines, his face turned into a symbol of greed, betrayal, and downfall. Once he had stood at the top of the world, looking down at the people he thought were beneath him. Now he was the one being judged, the one being mocked, the one everyone used as an example of how not to live. And as he sat there staring at the remnants of a life he had burned to the ground with his own arrogance, one thought haunted him more than any headline, more than any loss of wealth. Was it worth it? Was the power worth losing his brother? Was the money worth losing the only woman who had ever truly loved him? Was the fleeting thrill of winning worth a lifetime of regret? And for the first time in his life, Ahmed had to face the answer. It wasn't. The world had moved on as it always does. New millionaires had taken his place. New stories of greed and betrayal filled the headlines. Ahmed had become nothing more than a footnote, a warning, a ghost, a man who once had everything and let it slip through his fingers. And Omar thrived, not because he sought revenge, not because he had plotted Ahmed's downfall, but because he had chosen the path of integrity, of patience, of true success, the kind that can't be stolen, can't be bought, and can't be destroyed overnight. He had found happiness, real happiness, not in gold, not in luxury, but in a life built on honesty, on love, on the kind of wealth that lasts. And Ahmed, he was left to wander through the wreckage of his choices, forced to live with the weight of everything he had done. Because the ultimate lesson wasn't about wealth. It wasn't about power. It was about something Ahmed had never understood, something money could never buy, something manipulation could never secure. Peace. And in the end, that was the cruelest twist of all. Omar had it, and Ahmed never would. And just like that, the story came full circle. Once Ahmed had everything, wealth, power, the woman he stole, without a second thought. He thought he had won. He thought he had rewritten fate. But fate doesn't take orders. It watches, it waits, and when the time is right, it collects its debts. Now Omar stood tall, not because he sought revenge, not because he fought to destroy his brother, but because he never let greed consume him. He built something real, something that lasted, and for that, life rewarded him with the one thing Ahmed could never steal: a future. And Ahmed, he became nothing more than a name people whispered when they spoke of betrayal, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own empire, forever asking the question that no longer mattered. What if? But life doesn't deal in what ifs. It only deals in consequences, and Ahmed had finally received his.